Thanks for joining us in another webcast on Time Control. Today we're discussing TimeControl Industrial version 6. TimeControl Industrial is a field data collection system which is part of TimeControl's extended functionality, allowing you to produce timesheets for both back office personnel and field collection at the same time. My name is Chris Vandersloos. I'm the president of HMS Software. HMS has been around since 1984. We're specialists in project management and timesheet collection systems and have partnered with numerous alliance partners such as Microsoft, Oracle, and Deltek, to name but a few. Our projects and the projects that we've worked on over the years have a deep history in both aerospace, defense, and heavy industry. Time Control was born out of working in manufacturing and heavy industry projects, and we are known as an organization that helps with putting systems into organizations of all sizes and in many different industries to be able to collect both time and non-labor project costs. When we talk about timesheets, there are different ways to think of what timesheets might mean. If we're working with back office personnel, people who work at a desk and have a computer on their desk during the day, then we often talk about time and attendance systems. If we talk about professionals like lawyers or consultants or accountants, then we often talk about time and billing systems. If we talk about field personnel, we often talk about full-time equivalents or number of people who were on site at one time, or time and attendance, meaning did you show up for work and how long were you there. When we talk about project systems, we're typically talking about updating tasks that had a plan and updating not only the hours that were spent, but also the estimate to complete those tasks. And when we talk about field data collection, we have to talk not just about the labor, but also the non-labor costs that were collected in the field for heavy industry or shutdown or construction type projects. TimeControl Industrial builds on the existing popular time control architecture and functionality, so that all of the things that are popular about the classic version of time control, like ease of use, multi-browser, being able to work on your mobile phone, being able to do vacation approvals, and so on, that all of that is still available for those back office personnel, but that we also add an interface for being able to do field data collection for crew timesheets, or for material, for equipment, or production values from the field. And unlike a weekly timesheet that might be done for people who are doing their own timesheet for this week, field data collection might work shift by shift. It might work day by day, or it might work in a weekly type of timesheet. The idea is to have a single interface, a single timesheet system that fulfills multiple requirements. And that was really where TimeControl Industrial came from. Okay, enough of looking at slides for a few minutes. Let's take a look at TimeControl Industrial 6 in action on the screen. Okay, let's take a look at TimeControl Industrial 6, and we're going to log in as a crew entry person, somebody who would be entering data from the field. So someone who's doing field data collection. Diana Jacob has logged in, and we can see that she gets a dashboard that is unique for her. She can see her own personal vacation hours, her sick leave, personal time left in her bank. She can see that her personal timesheets have been done. She also has any other information here that might be more relevant for other members of the group, like timesheets that she's waiting to approve or announcements from the crew. Because time control includes both of the functionality for back office personnel and the crew and material collections, here we can see that Diana can see her own timesheet that she's working on for this week. But she also has access to crew entry and the material equipment production entry. When she does crew entry, she gets a very different interface. When Diana does that, she sees a crew entry interface that can be shown as it is here inside of the Internet Explorer frame, or as a completely separate Windows application, which is sometimes more popular for people who do high volumes of entry. Well, we're going to add a brand new crew timesheet. We can see we have a date to select from. Timesheets in the crew can be done for a week or can be done for an individual day. And in this case, she can select from the crews available to her. Well, we can see that there are several. She's going to do one for the Carl Linden crew. And we could even do multiple timesheets in a single day if we had multiple shifts to do. We've selected one date. We haven't got any entries in there yet, so we're presented with a blank timesheet, which could have been pre-populated if we'd asked to preload it with assignments, but often crew timesheets start off as a blank, because we can quickly populate this timesheet using the Insert Wizard. The Insert Wizard lets us select all or just some of the members. We can select from the available projects, or we can preload these as defaults. We can type in a charge number if we know it, or if it's written down on a form, or we can select it from an available list. We can select the rate values from available rate values. In this case, we're going to say this is done in standard time. And the whole team worked for 4 hours of the shift on this assignment. The wizard now calculates which employees and which entries are required by default to enter into each of these rows, and creates a single line for each person in that crew in the crew timesheet. With a tiny little screen, we've been able to enter in a few basic questions and let TimeControl do all the work for us in the background, essentially adding in some 15 lines of timesheet extremely quickly. We can do this no matter how large that team is. Now we can add an individual line by clicking append, or we can say we'd like to do something only for some of the team, and we can simply type in the values if we know them. We can say, let me just pick a different project, a different task, and type in that rate and 4 hours for the balance, and TimeControl will now go say, all right, well, for those people, I will add in lines for those additional people in the timesheet. Now, if you're a crew entry person, one of the questions that we're often asked is to say, well, have you now accounted for all of the hours for all the employees? And we can find that out quickly by hitting the worksheet button and doing a sum by employee. And now I can see just by looking down that we have some employees that are at 8 hours a day and some that are at 4 hours for that day. I can also do a sum by project, by charge. You can see we have different values for different charges and so on. So very quickly we're able to apply this timesheet and save this information right into TimeControl. We can then release it for approval, and it will follow whatever the approval path is for Carl Linden timesheets. In this particular case, Diana is working on her own in the field. She will release this directly to posting, and once that data is saved, it'll be available immediately for transfer out to project management tools like Primavera, to estimating tools, to finance tools for payroll, and so on. So that's all ready to be distributed now to posting, and that can be done directly. One of the other things that Diana can do is she can enter in information for material, equipment, or production usage during this shift. She can enter in virtually any kind of information. We can say that we have some information for Carl already for that period, and so we have some materials that are being used. We could have equipment that's being used, and now we're looking at rates for each of the quantities that we have said were used during this period, and we can make something simple like backhoe equipment that was used for 16 hours during this period. We can say production work. In this case, how many kilometers were completed, or how many cubic yards of concrete were poured. And so that can either be a material, it can be equipment, or it can be production values of what was accomplished during this shift. By using combinations here, we're able to very, very quickly add information. So I can say, well, we worked on the 4000 project today. We did work on a specific task. We'll take something on wiring, say. Which resource was this? Was this a material resource, production, or equipment? We'll say we used equipment. When we used what equipment did we use? Well, perhaps we used PVC pipe for insulating, and we now have values that we can enter, or that can come up automatically from the system. If we said we had a 50 cent a meter for pipe, and we're billing at 75, then the calculations can be done by TimeControl automatically for what the values are. All of that then is transferred back into saved accounts, and from there can also be transferred back into job costing, back to estimating, into project management, into finance as is required for invoicing. So we've seen some of the more basic elements. If we look at where those material rate codes came from, you'll see that the material rate code has two possible ways to manage rates. One would be the most simple type of rates, and if we take something like copper pipe, for example, then we can see that for our 1-inch copper pipe, well, we didn't have any particular values that we saw. Perhaps those values were not visible. We had other values that were perhaps visible for different people. So we can change some of those. We can change some of those values immediately inside the system. We can also use the extended rates. Extended rates allows us to create matching columns in the timesheet for materials or for labor and match those against possible premiums. When we do that for material or for crew rates, we can select any number of fields that we would like to combine. And you can see here we've combined the project name, the rate code, and an effective date to do escalated rates for things like materials. I can do the same thing when I look at the crew timesheet. Going back to the crew timesheet for a moment, we saw a very simple rate code where we picked just the standard rate for that entire crew. But each employee might be being paid a different value, and we can manage all of that for what is a standard rate for each one of those people. If we take that Carl Linden view that we just had a few moments ago, we had an ability to be able to say in the crew timesheet that we had a standard rate. Well, that was pretty straightforward. But we can also do something much more clever. We can do something called extended rates, where we use additional fields in the timesheet. We're just adding some additional fields there. And those additional fields then become visible on the timesheet. They could represent the shift, the trade, or the weather or hazard conditions, things like that, that can be turned on or off in the timesheet depending on who you are. And when we come back into extended rates, for crew extended rates, then we can match those fields to find out different premiums for different conditions. Let's say that we needed to have a special rate if you worked in a hazard condition, or if you worked outdoors, or if you were working in the plumbing department, or if you worked on the overnight shift. All of these might represent different premiums, and we can identify those for a particular employee, or for a particular resource, or for a particular project. Any number of conditions can be matched up in this way. So the crew timesheet gives us an awful lot of functionality to be able to change the way that crew entries are done. And the last thing to talk about is how we manage those crews. So we had crew entries here. We saw the Carl Linden crew. Where did we get that list? We got that list from the Manage Crews area. Manage Crews allows us to create any number of crews, and each of those crews can include in them whoever we wish. In fact, we can have some people that occur in more than one crew at one time. So we can have different people appear in the same kind of crew. Here, for example, we have Tim Carlisle Smith is in the Martin Fortin crew, and he's also in the Carl Linden crew. And so you can have crews that are managed here. This is really just to be able to allow us an ease of use when we go to use the insert wizard or when we go to create the crew timesheet. All of this makes reporting and looking at moving data between TimeControl Industrial and external systems like your payroll service, your payroll system, or your project management tools, your invoicing system. All of these things are typically linked into TimeControl's link environment to be able to move data in and out of TimeControl as you require. So that's a TimeControl Industrial. A very simple entry, and yet a tremendous amount of functionality available to us in the background. And let's return now to a couple of slides to wrap up. Okay, let's start wrapping up. You saw time control industrial crew timesheets and material timesheets. The whole workflow of how data moves in and out of time control can be as simple or as complex as you wish, depending on what systems you wish to integrate it with. We can bring in information for the field timesheets from easy to print take-down forms that time control can generate in hard copy format, so that foremen and supervisors in the field can take down that information and drop it off with a data entry clerk. Or foremen can enter that information for the timesheet and the materials and equipment used, as well as production values, either together or separately. Once they've done that, the timesheet information can be approved as a bulk, so the entire crew can be approved at once, or the timesheet can optionally be distributed to individual timesheets, which are all approved separately. Most commonly, though, people will approve the entire crew timesheet, and once they have, our automated rules and any other validation rules are tested, and then the data is ready to be sent immediately out to payroll, to finance for billing, back to project management to update the schedule, and so on. All of that cycle works as we add more projects, remove older projects. We can even work in a remote fashion where information is coming from satellite time control environments back to a centralized environment when there's no access to the internet or a network. The approvals are extensive. We have an automated validation rule library where you can create your own rules that you wish to apply to some or to all situations. Rules can be for employees or for crews to determine what makes for a valid crew entry timesheet or a valid employee's timesheet. And every one of those objects, whether that's an employee's timesheet, a crew's timesheet, a material entry, a production entry, an equipment entry, can have unique approval paths. You define all of that one time or adjust it as need be so that the approvals work the way that you require. There's a wide range of functionality in both Time Control Classic and Time Control Industrial. We're really focusing on the industrial features here, but if you wanted to get a more rounded view of some of the other functionality inside of Time Control, then we invite you to take a look at the webcast for the classic version of Time Control, available at timecontrol.com. But the system is designed to be able to be very simple for data entry and yet have an enormous amount of functionality available for administrators in the back end to be able to configure and link the information to the different systems that are required. If you're using your individual timesheet, you can do your timesheet on an iPhone or a BlackBerry or an Android or a Windows mobile device. If you are doing crew entry, then you can use either a browser-based crew entry or a full Windows application, which is sometimes popular for people doing high volume entries. We have alliance links with numerous products and numerous partners. And not only are we linked with technology partners like Microsoft, Oracle, and Deltek, but you'll see that we have partners through our dealers as well. You may recognize some of the clients in our dealer list. Time Control and Time Control Industrial are used by some of the most recognizable organizations in the world in a wide variety of industries. So whether it's in manufacturing, heavy industry, in oil and gas, utilities, or in shutdown and plant maintenance, Time Control Industrial can work in a wide variety of formats. And we're represented around the world by a wonderful group of full-service dealers, people who both sell time control and assist with its deployment and implementation and integration to your other parts of your environment, such as your finance or project management systems. So to sum up what we've looked at in the last few minutes, Time Control Industrial builds on what is already in Time Control Classic and adds to it functionality for entering a crew timesheet, for entering material, for entering equipment, entering production values from the field. It's an excellent field data collection service, and it supports not only field data collection, but the back office personnel and field data collection in the same database, in the same system. You can use a single timesheet for multiple purposes. It includes links to multiple systems, including your project management, your finance, for billing, for payroll, for HR, and a wide variety of other things that may be important for you to link to. Now, if you'd like more information about TimeControl Industrial, the best place to find it is on our website at industrial.timecontrol.com. If you'd like to try TimeControl Classic, you can do that right online at freetrial.timecontrol.com. If you'd like to find out more about HMS and some of the things that we have done, you can go to the HMS corporate site at hmssoftware.ca. And if you'd like to talk to us about showing you TimeControl Industrial and how it might apply to your particular environment, then please email us at info@hmssoftware.ca. Thanks for your time today.